Welcome. It's another episode of the Downtown Den, talking with some of our members about what's going on in their world. Today I'm joined by Dave Dargan, who's co-founder of the Starship Group. Thank you for joining us today.
No probs.
Exciting times, I think, at the moment for the city and the region. We met with you guys out in MIPIM. We had some good conversations out there. Want to tell us a little bit about your business and the industry you're in, especially this idea of industrialised construction that you're leading the march on at the moment.
Yeah. So we're a sort of 360 property developer. As you would see a property developer, we have land-led deals. We're a construction organisation, but uniquely, and what we're famous for is our off-site construction, our industrialised construction products. So that means that we're making building components and homes off-site in our factory. Built to significantly sort of higher energy efficiency standards, which is the real USP. Really swiftly delivered and installed, taking a lot of the dangerous and sort of complicated work out of the weather and the site environment. And yeah, that's what we're sort of pushing now. And our real passion is not just around doing things differently, but also, as I mentioned before, it's about the energy efficiency. So we've got to be delivering homes that are great to live in, cheap to run. Not, people don't really care about how it's built as long as it's safe and it's done to the right standards. Really the key point is, what are you left with at the end? Is it a nice house to live in? Has it got low energy bills?
You're a Birkenhead based organisation. We spent some time with you at your offices, but you've also got manufacturing capability in the Birkenhead area as well. So
yeah, so at either side of the dock in Wirral Waters, we've got our office facilities there with all our design and engineering, design for manufacture, where all that happens for our work that we do in the UK, and we've got a business in Starship Group in Canada, so that all happens from there, all that sort of design and innovation. And then we've got a manufacturing facility out on the other side of the dock, old oil storage units, so now repurposed for low carbon, sort of zero bills homes. And that's where they're built, and they're built and transported all over the country. We've had projects from down in Devon in the south up to Ben Nevis in the north. Really efficient way. We're just going through some new technology installations and some robotics that are coming into the factory to sort of push the innovation barriers really, and sort of bring some brand new things that have never been done in the UK before.
So we know you from the work that you've done on the Wirral and in the Liverpool City region. So I think the Green Lease scheme in Wallasey was recent from yours, and some of the more high profile stuff that you're doing in West Kirby and other places as well. But you're also working more broadly across the Northwest region as well. New scheme in Greater Manchester recently.
Yeah, we've got one in Greater Manchester that we're delivering for one of our customers now, which is great, up in Tameside. We're just going live with 3 sites in Hull that we've just secured for the local authority there. That's their first step into sort of true MMC, Category 2, which is our sort of light gauge steel frame system. And that's also one of the first frameworks to be, or first jobs to be awarded through the CHIC framework. So we've been working a lot with the team at CHIC. As they're going across the country to promote this as a I wouldn't say it's a new way, because it uses some age-old technologies, but it's not seen as mainstream, and we've really got to start to push this to get the capacity up in the market, and it's one of the ways that we're going to build more homes. So not an instead of solution, but as well as because we need more capacity.
And of course, it's not just homes that you're looking to co-develop as well. You've got an interest in educational and healthcare establishments and other public sector footprint as well.
Yeah. So I think what we keep saying is our product's a highly engineered product. So we, as you say, we build homes, and the real focus there is on energy efficiency and speed, because obviously the housing shortage pressures. But we also build building components that we provide to other construction organisations to help them build their buildings, whatever that might be, low rise, high-rise sort of buildings. We've done a lot in the leisure sector, so Chester Zoo is one of our famous projects where we've used the same building technology, but just for that application. And as you say there, we're doing now a lot of work on the innovation side in healthcare and education. So I think what we always say in our business is we want to fit where we're needed with our customer. So some of our customers want us to go away and deliver the whole project right the way through as a full construction contractor. other clients we're working with where they are in their own right capable contractors, and we provide the building components to help them to speed up their delivery. And really that's where we see the main part of our future. We want to be doing maybe 250 homes sort of minimum a year on our direct projects that we're delivering, because that's our R&D platform. But really where we see our growth coming from is those partnerships with large contractors and large developers.
And you mentioned it earlier, but not just expand across the north and elsewhere in the country, but internationally. You have a Canadian operation.
Yeah, so I think the way we tried to sort of, or where we have built the business, we've got very strong technology, very strong sort of replicable processes. So what we're looking to do now is to maximise that opportunity. So wherever the market is suitable and there's market opportunity, it's actually not that complicated to replicate. And I think what people say when they come to see us is that we put a lot of work into the simplicity of it. So we've made everything really simple so it can be started, good entry levels for skills. So there's a real solution to a problem. And I think that's what, we've had lots of people visiting us from all over Europe and all over the world who've come and said, look, they've been to some very high-tech manufacturing facilities, but actually we've been able to put together something that's really, really simple. And I think that's what we've seen with our operation in Canada. I think what's been great as well is we've used a lot of our connections from the Liverpool City region in some of these international businesses. So people like BDP, their team, we work quite closely in the City region, have got their Canadian team working with us over there. Avison Young, same thing, we've got their principal managing director in Toronto, connected by the relationships we have here in Liverpool. So we've been able to sort of, I think I used it at the last event we were at, is Avengers Assemble. We're bringing together the team, the supply chain, the global partnerships that we've built with people, and it's just then launching it in different territories.
Wonderful. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the housing market and what can be done to move it forward more quickly. Earlier this week, Rightmove released some data that showed that whilst property prices were rising, they were rising at a slower rate. They also warned that following the conflict in Iran and uncertainty politically and economically elsewhere, mortgage rates had increased, making it more difficult, especially for first-time buyers, and that there were more properties sitting on the market than there had been before. It's challenging circumstances if you're in the home building game. What do you think, other than those macro things, can be done to perhaps start to get the market ticking over in general, and maybe specifically in the areas that you work in?
Yeah, well, I think obviously one of the difficult dynamics is, when we have like overseas conflict and things that, that affects confidence levels in all sorts of sectors, doesn't it? So, people are then making decisions about whether they want to move house or not, whether they where things are going to go, and as you say, mortgage rate stability. So I think that they're very difficult sort of challenges that almost are, to a degree, largely outside of our control in our sort of market. But what I sort of feel is when we're looking about building more homes, what we have to think about is building more homes with more options. So, when you look across Europe, there's way more flexibility around how you can buy a house, the tenancies, and I think this is what we're sort of seeing now as a big opportunity. So, build to rent investors, social landlords are widening out their product base to allow people to get, onto the property sale at a bit little or no deposits, to part buy properties or to rent to buy properties, and all those different things. So I think that putting that optionality into the market is going to help, because it's going to get people on the ladder, and it's going to get them some level of mortgage sort of track record. So I think that's super important. I know we were all brought up, when we were younger, you've got to buy a house as soon as possible and get your mortgage paid down. But I think probably younger people particularly, I think they want that flexibility because they haven't made a decision about where they want to put their roots down, and they maybe do want to move around a little bit and decide which city they want to live in and where the right job opportunities are. So I think that's something that we're really focused on, trying to make sure that we work with that breadth of partners. So because as you say there, the difficulty we're going to have, particularly around housing targets, is we rely on the PLC house builders to keep up the numbers, and obviously as they start to see the market being more challenging, they're going to roll back, and land bank and on all those sorts of things, and actually we're going to start to sort of regress in housing numbers. So we're going to rely heavily on innovation, more innovative models and how people can sort of buy and rent and buy properties. I think that's a key thing.
So clearly global events and global affairs can make big impacts on those things. But equally local activities and local rules and laws can make a difference as well. Yeah. At the end of the day, you need planning permissions and approvals and a market that works in a locality. From your experience working across the north of England, the northwest in particular, what are some good examples of where maybe local authorities and the public sector are working with the house builders and with developers to get things done, and what more could be done?
Yeah, I think there's, the great thing is there's a lot of good work going on around this, particularly, across the Liverpool City region. We're quite heavily involved in some of these discussions around how we can sort of make the whole process more frictionless. And something I talk about quite a lot is, when we talk about acceleration of house building, everybody focuses on the physicality of building the house. So how are we going to do it? Have we got the right skills? Are we going to build it traditionally or using MMC? And that's where all the focus goes. Whereas 2/3 of the problem are nothing to do with that. 2/3 of the problem are, where are we going to build the houses? It's the land. So in whose ownership, and how is that ownership being transferred into the right hands? In some cases, it's in local authority hands, but it's very difficult to get it into the right responsible developers' hands to deliver the housing that we need, rather than what delivers the most profit. And I think that the second part of that sort of three-part pie really is this planning and almost pre-construction process. It's very difficult because there are lots of organisations involved in that all have conflicting views and values and objectives, and I think that's going to be the big challenge. So we're doing a lot of work now around how can a local authority or a registered provider procure land for its purpose, rather than just what the best bang for the buck is. You see this a lot. There's a lot of stuff being built, tenancies being built that make the developer the right profit, but it's not satisfying the housing demand. Right. You look at the housing waiting lists. There's certain 3 beds, for example. Massive demand, but not a lot of people building them. So I think there's a sort of lot of work to do around that land side, and then really it's not just about the planning teams, because you've got all sorts of consultees that are involved in that process that result in big delays, and I think we've got to find a way of getting those 2 things sorted. I then feel really the latter part, even though there's challenges there, the private sector is quite good at responding to those challenges and finding ways to develop skills and to generate capital and to deliver. That's what private sector is good at. But we've got to work together with the public sector to fix the other 2 bits first.
And clearly there's innovation in the construction sector. There perhaps needs to be equal amounts of innovation in the laws and the regulations that allow these things. One of the big challenges that we face is release of greenbelt land. It's a very emotive issue for people. Yet there's lots of pre-developed sites and brownfield sites and redevelopment sites that are available, perhaps more attractive to developers at a different scale than those who are looking at PLC level to build hundreds or thousands of homes in one go. What can be done to unlock those sites?
I think the difficulty is there's always a balance, isn't it, between we should always be responsible, not going greenbelt first, because everybody wants to build on these nice sort of green fields and things. But I think the big issue you have with the brownfield sites is it's the viability. The reason they've not been unlocked in the past, through private sector investment or public sector investment, is that they have challenges. And what the sector's trying to do now is to find solutions around that. I think there's a little bit of the same issue where there's lots of different pots of cash that I think it's very difficult to see how they interact. The city region have got a pot there now to invest and to sort of try and unlock those things, but that has to link in with Homes England and how that funding for the grant funding works for the homes. So it can get quite complicated, but I do think there's going to have to be a balance, and I know a lot of local authorities are talking about this now, is to say, well, we can't just go brownfield only because it's too challenging, and there is limited resources to subsidise land remediation. So we're going to have to unlock some of the sort of almost grey belt, as people call it, or we're not building in farmers' fields, but it might be not necessarily on an ex-warehouse site or something that's got housing on there before. So I think that's going to be a key thing really to you know, we've got, because really what we've got to do is we've got to create the market opportunity. You know, if we've got developable sites that we can take out to the market as a city region, or as a UK, then you know you're gonna get the private sector responding to those opportunities, particularly on build to rent investors and social landlords, because they are sort of not mandated, but they have the provisions there to build and the targets and the motivations to do it.
One of the opportunities that house building also provides is the ability to create a place, to build community, to strengthen existing communities. One area in the city of Liverpool that's offering that opportunity is the Festival Gardens site in the south of the city. You've been selected as a partner, I believe, to build housing there. What's planned there?
So yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity. So we've gone in partnership with the Urban Splash Igloo JV, and we're the first developer on the first phase, around about 50 homes, and then subject to that being delivered and starting the placemaking out, there's a second phase, and then we've also been selected as the construction technology partner for the other partners that are delivering. And there's a registered provider and a private fund in there. But as you said there, you know, and this is the key thing about not just seeing things as a piece of land and what's the maximum, you know, profit that can be made on there. We have to create communities with facilities, places where people want to live, interconnectability with other communities and transport and all that sort of stuff. So it's great to sort of have a project like that you're there from the start and you're helping sort of shape. You know, it's a phased project, so again, all the partners can learn as they go. It's a famous site, isn't it? You know, it's probably the most famous site in the city region that's been there, dangling away, you know, ready to be developed. So I think it's, you know, a lot of work to do on the design and sort of development side, but looking forward to getting moving on that.
One of the challenges also, of course, is you're introducing new technologies and new innovations into the construction business. Do you have the skills? Do you have the workforce that's ready to go to help you deliver all these sites?
Yeah, I think, you know, we sort of have a lot of discussions around skills with all the sort of skills sector leaders, and I think, you know, there's a sort of shared vision around this, is that you can't develop skills through strategy, it's through opportunity. So if you talk to the colleges and the universities, they are very good at responding to a market demand for skills. So, you know, if we were to bring a brand new organisation into the region that needed a very particular skill, you would see those organisations change and morph to be able to sort of to fill that sort of gap. I don't think it's something we can do by filling rooms full of people that have got the new skills for air source heat pumps and, you know, advanced manufacturing and industrialised construction. I think what we've got to do is create the opportunities, gives people the confidence that there is a job and there's a career and there's some stability there and there's a pipeline. And then, you know, we're pretty confident, as we said before, we've got a very simple model that allows the entry point to be quite low, very clear, exciting career paths to climb the ladder, and I think that's the key to it really, is creating that market opportunity.
Are you working with skills providers, education providers across the city region in the north to try and put those programs in place?
Yeah, of course. In every region we work, you know, of our campus model. So we're doing this in the Liverpool city region, the same as we're doing in Manchester, up in Hull, and that means there's three sort of things that happen really. In our world, we have a manufacturing facility that is physically manufacturing the products. We have our academy that has embedded FE and HE partners in there. So if we use the Liverpool city region as an example, we work with Liverpool John Moores, University of Liverpool, on building performance. We fill our buildings full of probes and monitoring systems, and then we figure out how do they behave, how do people use them. You know, embodied carbon in operation, energy use. So we do a lot of study work on that, right the way through to you know, most of the organisations, the higher education organisations in the city region. We've got training rigs embedded in their sites for helping develop the curriculum that students are spending time with us, right the way through assembly all the way up to design engineers, to give them sort of market knowledge about what we do and what we see as a big growth sector, you know, not just regionally but nationally. So yeah, it's an important part. And then the third part we have is we have an innovation centre, and that's where we have formal partnerships with you know, national, regional and international partners. So the one we launched couple of weeks ago with Van der Sanden, first UK partnership on brick facades, Saint-Gobain, Velux. These are companies that were helping develop products for the first time ever in the UK, things that can be used in the market by us and others. And that's really our vision for what a campus should look like, wherever that might be, is that you've got those three dynamics happening all the time.
It's great to hear about the international reach of the organisation. When we come back, we're going to hear about your experiences at MIPIM and what you're looking forward to at UKREiiF. Dave, you were a guest of, or a member of the delegation from downtown in MIPIM, out in the south of France, and you're going to be joining the delegation again to go to Leeds for REiiF. What was it that stood out for you from your experience in MIPIM? What did that deliver for you?
Yeah, I think we had a great year this year, and I think there's a bit of training involved, isn't there? You have to do things right and wrong as you go year by year. So I think the first year we were like super busy, doing too many things and not really achieving a lot. And then we were a bit better in year two, and I think this year we had a really good year. We made sure we spent time with the right people and the right events. As you say, we joined the downtown delegation, so we got a chance to meet some of the public sector and some of the business leaders find out what they're doing, understand a bit more about policy, what their ambitions are. It was quite interesting to see, we met people from right across the UK, Northern Ireland, out into the US, Chicago, all with very similar challenges, strangely enough, So, there is a bit of a commonality of the things that the challenges people are coming up against, all the things we've talked about before, a bit of planning, a bit of land, a bit of market dynamics. So it was just interested to see, how they're going about dealing with those problems. So yeah, it was pretty good. We got some fantastic leads, that we've already followed up on now. We've had some really good meetings on some quite substantial opportunities. And I think the other thing it does, I think what we find about MIPIM is it's a big relationship development job really for us, because we're not out there to attract foreign investment. We're there to do our bit for the city region as part of the delegation to help put the city on the map and showcase some of the great things about Liverpool and the Liverpool city region. However, for us, selfishly, it's about generating those relationships, and I think you get to spend time with some fairly senior public and private sector people that probably wouldn't have the diary time back in the UK. You get to know them a bit better, so it's a lot easier to pick back up when you come back and follow up on the opportunity.
At MIPIM, every city in every region on earth is represented there, from the Middle East, from the United States, obviously Europe and the UK. How important do you think it is that the city has a combined voice, public sector and private sector, at events like that?
Yeah, I think it's critical, because I think the two things that I suppose a city will want to show is that you have to be there, because you have to show that your city is on the world stage and it's an important player. But I think the things, and we talk about this a lot, I think investors don't just want to see a physical investment. There's an opportunity or something in the prospectus. I think what they want to feel is that region or that city has got something about it, that they want to work in the city. They buy into the culture, and I think they can see that it's a place that gets things done. And you can't get things done unless you've got public and private sector working in harmony. So I think it's been super important, that really. And I think more so because obviously UKREiiF is a bit more of a domestic. There is an international edge to it, but it's more of a domestic event. I think that's a big part of really putting that stamp on. And I think what went well this year, obviously we joined Liverpool, is there was a bit of that Liverpool stamp with a bit of Beatles music playing, and a bit of really that DNA came out a bit better this year, which I think was good.
You mentioned there that UKREiiF will be taking place in Leeds in a few weeks' time. What are the challenges that we're facing in that conversation, and who are you looking forward to meeting or working with or getting into discussions with?
Yeah, well, it's a strange one, REiiF, because diary time's difficult because domestically everyone wants to get in the room with all their customers. A lot more of our customers are there than our suppliers and partners, so it can be a little bit more challenging. But I think the return on investment's even greater, because I think nearly every conversation you're having, I think we said in MIPIM, you could be taking pointers from different cities all over the world. You're bringing information back and knowledge, whereas more or less every conversation you're having in REiiF is about a specific opportunity, or we're trying to move a relationship forward with one of our public sector or private sector partners. So I think that's quite a sort of an efficient way to sort of get things done, because you've got everyone there at the same time. So I think we're looking forward to that. We've got lots of things that we've been nurturing along, for the last couple of years, that things that are going to start to get legs now and come to fruition. So I think it'll be a good time to sort of maybe get that done. Try and get a few of the next sort of announcements out of the things that we've been working on, the opportunities that are starting. So we're looking forward to it.
One of the challenges for everybody in the construction and development game is funding and financing. And with such uncertainty in the world, what can we do to find ways to sell that story or tell that story more loudly, or perhaps in different places even?
Yeah. Well, I think to some degree, I think we've done a lot of work on around sort of private rented and build to rent investors and pension funds and things like that. And I think one of the dynamics is they want to be able to see that they can invest in a project that they can get moving, and they can start having it generating revenue. It's not tied up in development finance for forever. So with the way that we build, and not just ourselves, but with our building components and our partners that we work with, we're able to get better, more rapid delivery. I think the other thing investors are valuing is that it's a lower energy house is more attractive. It's a more long-term prospect. There's some statistics out there that the rent defaults are through the floor because nobody wants to lose a zero bills or a low bills home. So I think they're very attractive assets to own. So I think that conversation sort of helps a lot. But I think what they want to see is, particularly because it's generating revenue for them, is they want to see that their capital can be returned pretty quickly into a revenue generating sort of model, rather than it being tied up for 2 or 3 years in the development phase. So a lot of conversations around that sort of going on. We've got our Octopus Energy partnership around zero bills, so we're leading a lot of discussions on that. It's our chosen delivery model. We only want to really regress from that if the viability is a challenge, but ideally we should be trying to find a way through that, give people with zero bills homes. So there's a lot of exciting conversations going on about that as well.
And it's also challenging for you, I imagine, to think about these new demographics. We've spoken earlier about challenges of first-time buyers, getting their first foot on the first rung of the ladder, and maybe there's a diminished expectation that you have to own your home anymore, and even what that home looks and feels like. How do you make sure you stay in touch with what the next generation of property buyers and home buyers are looking for?
Yeah, I think it's different. It's difficult because it changes, doesn't it? Obviously, because as generations sort of come through, they have different wills and desires. And I think, obviously we're in this social media world now where people can see a lot more around. People want to travel now and move around different cities in the UK or even internationally. So I think that's going to morph. And I think, one of the things that we always look at is that we should be making sure the homes we're building now are adaptable. So, they can change with demand. We do a lot of work now on one bed properties that can be converted into 2 and 3. They've got a pre-conversion methodology. So as the customer or the investor is investing in housing assets, then they know they can morph and change that, with the demand. And I think, as you said there, it's the ownership model. I think it creates a great opportunity. I think what we've got to try and make sure is that we've got to make sure the home feels like your home. And you've got an access and a route to buy it. And I think that ticks a lot of boxes, because people want to put their roots down, they want to have children, they want to put the children in the school, build friendship groups. So having that balance, I think this is why we like working with registered providers a lot, because they have these flexible models that allow people to sort of, I suppose, go on a few different journeys to get to the right destination of owning the house at the end. And I think that's quite important.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're building houses, but you're making homes.
Yeah.
And if people want to stay in their community as well, it's important that there's the correct mix there, because that's not just young people entering the market. It's people getting perhaps near to my age of the spectrum who are looking to downsize and looking for new housing options. What work do you do to provide those solutions for aging retirees to stay in their communities.
Yeah, well, I think this is around when we talk about like an engineered product. So what we have to look at is, and we talk a lot about this, is like the house is a pretty dumb asset. You know, once it's physically built, and it is what it is. It's not very technologically advanced. Your mobile phone, you can travel the world with your mobile phone and your passport. But your house, the most expensive thing you'll ever buy, or you aspire to own, very uncomplicated piece of kit, doesn't tell you anything, doesn't interact with you. So I think this is what we're trying to do through building innovation and building design now, is look at, right, how does somebody want to interact with that home? So how can it, number one, how can it talk to you and tell you whether it's happy or sad, it needs help, it doesn't, it's, you know, it's air quality is right, or there's an issue somewhere. And I think the second part is how can we make that adaptability so that we can start to make homes be different things over their life cycle. So as you said there, the same way as we've got options now with customers where we've got 2-bed properties that can go to 3-bed because that family may have more children, they don't want to move. They also then can downgrade back to 1-bed, walk-up apartments, and you know, that conversion methodology can go the other way. So I think it allows us to stay away from this primitive model where if you go back, you know, 5-6 years ago, everyone was trying to put 1-bed properties in because there was a big 1-bed market. Well, that's going to change at some point. We'll have loads of 1-bed properties that nobody wants, and everybody wants more family homes. So I think that's what we've got to look at. As every time we do something, we look at it from a design perspective, and how can what's the cleverest way we can design that building, all those building components, to be able to, for it to have a second or third generation life.
Oh, I think that's exactly what the conversation on housing has become. It's the adaptability to suit our lifestyles and the way that we see ourselves living our lives in the future. And thanks for coming in again today, Dave. It's really interesting to hear about the work that you're doing, and I'm sure we'll be meeting you in Leeds at REiiF and hearing more about what the Starship Group are up to there. Thank you.
Cheers, thanks.